welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator here, Johnny Hemberger, enjoying this gorgeous day in Houston, Texas. As of recording, I'm recording this show right now on Thursday. And it's probably one of the last just truly exceptional days of the year we're going to get. It is the end of March as of recording. It's March 31st as of recording right now. It's like a perfect 78 degrees outside, sunny. I went for a bike ride for over an hour today. It was just absolutely splendid. So anyways, I've got some windows open around here in the Geek Therapy Radio solar-powered studios. So if you hear some neighbors, working outside or whatever, that's just what you're going to hear, the ambiance, but you probably won't hear it. Anyways, let's talk about some, what's been on my mind, at least for this first segment, and you know me, this could spill over, probably likely will spill over. I want to talk about handheld emulators. So for somebody just listening on the radio who may not know what I'm talking about, so remember the Nintendo Game Boy, or even the Sony PSP, or the Sega Game Gear, things like that. Those are handheld video game systems from back in the day, and even modern times. The Nintendo Switch, depending on what kind of form and model you get, it can be a handheld video game device. So what a handheld emulator is, it's a device that lets you play video games from all sorts of different systems, all on one system. So let's say you buy a handheld emulator, you can play your Super Nintendo games and Sega Genesis games and maybe Nintendo 64 games and maybe PSP games, Sony games, all on one device. Matter of fact, your phone right now that you have on you can do all those things. You can download an app called I call it RetroArch. Other people say RetroArch. I'm not sure what the correct pronunciation is. RetroArch, whatever it is, type it into the Google Play Store, and you can download it freely and easily. And you download, they're called cores for different video game systems. So the NES core, Super NES core, Sega Genesis core, all those types of things. And then I won't tell you how, but you can obtain what are called ROMs, and you can play your old Sega Genesis games you loved growing up, or Super Nintendo games, or Atari games you loved growing up, right there on your phone. You pair a Bluetooth controller to it, and you're good to go. The same kind of software is available, of course, on almost everything. So your personal computer, your tablet, your desktop PC, whatever has a processor in it, basically can run emulators. So it emulates other video game systems on hardware that wasn't really designed to run it. That's basically what an emulator is. And a handheld emulator, they come from all over the world, usually China, but some of them come from Taiwan, and I believe some are from Korea. That's what I kind of wanted to talk about, at least in this first segment, and probably moving on into the next segments, is that I'm really jonesing for a handheld emulator that I haven't received yet. Supply chain, coronavirus, all that stuff, we're kind of just getting out of the effects of all that, like slowly but surely. By the way, side note, graphics cards, GPUs, prices on them are about to plummet again. They're about to become much more reasonable. No, you're not going to be going out and spending $3,000, $4,000 getting scalped for an RTX 3090. You'll be able to get those for, around $2,000. Their MSRP, whatever their MSRP is, very quickly. So RTX 360s, 360 Ti's, 3080s, did I say 360? 3060 is what I meant. 3070s, 3080s, 3090. All that stuff. Graphics cards are about to equalize in price. They're about to come back down. Anyway, so supply chain issues means that everything under the sun with a chip in it, basically, has had trouble, from automobiles to handheld emulators like I'm talking about right now. Months ago, when did I order this? Was it December or January that I ordered a Retroid Pocket 2 Plus? Now, those of you listening to the podcast, maybe some of you listening to the radio right now, you've probably seen reviews for this thing. It seems like everybody under the sun on YouTube who reviews games like this or devices like this already has one. But I don't have one yet due to supply chain issues. But I recently got an email actually probably more than a week ago at this point, that it's finally left China. Remember, I ordered this thing a few months ago, and only last week did I get an email that it has finally left China. So the thing about shipping from China to the United States is it says it's shipped, and then you just cross your fingers that you're actually gonna get it. It's a fairly reputable country. Not country. I almost said fairly reputable country. That's not the case. The company is fairly reputable though. Retroid, they have no issues, customer complaints as far as receiving products or anything like that. It's not vaporware. It's actual devices, and they ship them out. It's just they've been constrained by the same constraints that every other manufacturer has. So I should be receiving that in the near future. It runs on top of It runs Android, and I think it has its own operating system, but it also, basically its own operating system also runs on top of an older version of Android 6.0, I think. And then the newest operating system, because you can kind of dual boot, is the newer. I want to say it's Android 11, maybe? Either way, I'm going to get that soon, and that's got me thinking about what do I want in my perfect handheld emulator. And we're coming up on the end of this segment here. I'm going to kind of tell you my wish list, and we'll talk about what does and kind of doesn't exist for that wish list, because I'm not alone in that wish list. I'll just tell you right now, as we're getting out, into the bump here, that a smartphone and a Bluetooth controller, like a smartphone and an 8BitDo or 8BitDo Bluetooth controller, that's great, but that's not really my wish list. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You've got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. You might hear Jack in the background. I hear him caterwauling downstairs like a moron. He is the... Listeners to the podcast, listeners to the radio show, you've heard me go off a handful of times, at least several times, on how terrible of a cat Jack is. He is, bar none, the worst domestic cat on the planet Earth. Just the worst. I've even joked, I don't really want to go off too much on a tangent about this, but I've joked that I would pay somebody like $500 to take Jack away. Just you deal with Jack for the rest of his life. I will pay you $500. The reason I don't do that, the reason why I actually wouldn't do that, is whoever I paid $500 to take Jack, within 1 week, they would call me back and say, I'll give you $600 to take him back. I'll repay your $500 and then pay another $100 on top of it for you to take Jack back. He is the worst cat. People who meet him for the first hour, like if you meet him briefly, you'll say, oh, how could you hate this cat? He's such a perfect, wonderful, cuddly kitty. We all have that acquaintance, I'll just say. We all know that a human being that is awesome to be around for an hour, and then you want to just dive right into the face of the sun after 1 hour of being around this type of person. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're the life of the party. They're awesome. They're awesome to be around couple hours, but after 2 hours, you just want to shoot yourself off into space. That's kind of what Jack is. He's like a cuddly, fat cat. He draws you in. You think that, he's being very cute and cuddly. Then you realize after a while, it's codependence, and it's the worst kind of codependence, and he's puking everywhere, and he's dragging his poopy, muddy butt across the carpet just like a dog. Did I mention he barfs everywhere all the time? Did I mention that he stinks? Did I mention he leaves poop spots in the bed? Tried everything with the diet, tried everything with the vet, absolutely everything under the sun. Nothing works for him. Nothing at all. His brain is just... He's got a broken cat brain. I've spent too much time on that. Let's get back to what I was talking about originally, which is handheld emulators, and that I'm still day to day waiting to receive my Retroid Pocket 2 Plus. One of the things I want to do with my Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, barring, of course, I want to play all my emulators on it. I want to play my PSP games on it. I want to play my NES games. I want to play my Super NES games, Atari, all that good stuff. I can't wait to put a Steam Link on it and be able to play my Steam library running on my gaming PC upstairs, wherever I am really in the world on Wi-Fi. Even better if I'm on my own network, be able to play my games on a little handheld. The games that are appropriate for the size of screen. The Retroid Pocket 2 Plus has a 640 by 480 screen, which is absolutely ideal for retro gaming. I'm not sure you want to be playing the, God of War on PC on a little 4 or 5 inch screen at that resolution. It's just going to be too tiny. You're not going to be able to see. Have y'all noticed, and maybe it's just me, it's time for Geek Therapy Old Man Grumpy Hour. Have you noticed that for playing games in 4K is great? The text is so small on the screen, though. It's tiny little text you can barely see, even in 4K. Even if you're playing on a 60-inch TV, I'm squinting sometimes. What the heck is this saying? What button presses is it asking me to press here? What am I supposed to do? I can't read the friggin' tiny little text on the screen. It's like a scaling issue. Some games have terrible scaling issues. So the last thing I want to do is play a game like that where it requires you to read things going on the screen on a 4-inch screen at 640 by 480 resolution. It's just, that type of game just ain't gonna work well. Anyways, there will be some games that will probably work a little bit better on that size, small of a screen. I'm just saying, one of the cool things, since it's running Android, the Retroid Pocket 2 Plus, since it's running on top of Android, and it runs Android if you want to boot into just straight up Android, is that you can install things like Steam Link. You can install things like GeForce Now and have a truly pocketable handheld emulation device that you can play all these GeForce Now games and your PC games theoretically through your through Steam Link, through Steam Out. That's all great. I'm looking forward to that. Display output, Bluetooth, and everything like that, so that you can hook it up to a bigger screen and play your games and do Steam Link like that and GeForce Now like that. That's all well and dandy. I'll let y'all know when I get that device. But what I really want to get at here is that I want. I don't know if I brought up this wish list before, but I want to reiterate this. So my wish list for handheld gaming device is basically to take my smartphone, which my smartphone right now is the Galaxy Note 9. I still have the Galaxy Note 9 because, quite frankly, and this makes me like the anti-tech podcaster, YouTuber guy. I don't know how Marques Brownlee reviews so many smartphones. To me, smartphone technology, it's this weird thing for me where I fully agree, and I am just jaw-dropped because I'm one of the last generations of people to grow up before cell phones, and basically all we had was TV, radio, and Ataris and NES and kind of video game systems that had no way to hook up to the internet. I remember when the Sega Channel was a thing back in the 90s, and I got that modem. Whatever. I grew up riding my bike without a cell phone. That's just the way it was. I'm an 80s baby. I forget exactly where I'm going with this, but yeah. So my jaw, here we go. My jaw is dropped at the technology of it all behind smartphones, that you have a computer in your pocket, that you have access to the worldwide, all the human history is in your pocket right now. Does that make us any smarter? Absolutely not. But we have the access to all of human history, have access to videos in 4K. We can record in 4K and 8K. We have a movie studio in our pocket. We have a recording studio in our pocket. Smartphones and the displays, smartphones are jaw-dropping technology. But at the same time, like I said, I don't know how Marques Brownlee and other reviewers do it. Smartphones are both jaw-dropping in their technology, but supremely boring to me. I don't think of my smartphone. Yes, I understand, like I just said, the technology is jaw-dropping. That doesn't make it exciting, though, anymore. I mean, when the first iPhone came out, and arguably you could say Blackberries and things like that, but the first true kind of Android era, iPhone era smartphones came out with a screen and cameras and things like that. It was obviously we were living in the future. That was just the beginning of the future of this kind of technology. But now, I still have my Galaxy Note 9 because there's absolutely nothing out there that's good enough or better in any sort of measurable way to make me want it, to want to go spend over $1,000 on a device. Not even folding smartphones have captured my imagination and whimsy enough to make me say, oh man, a folding smartphone, that's awesome. That's I actually want one of those. I don't. There's no smartphone that exists right now that I want that's good enough to upgrade from my Galaxy Note 9. Because to me, the Galaxy Note 9 was kind of the last Android phone, at least, that had ticked all the boxes. I wish it had a removable battery. That's not really a thing. If you're going to be IP68 or 67, whatever, water splash rated, you can't really have much of a modular design if you're going to be waterproof at the same time, water resistant at the same time. So I get that. But the Note 9 has a headphone jack, the Type-C port. It has an SD card. You could put external storage on there. So it kind of ticks all those boxes where newer phones, if they do still have all those things, it's like, great, you've got a Snapdragon 865 or a Snapdragon 888, whatever. It's better, it's faster, but I'm doing everything I need to do on my Note 9. I'm emulating GameCube games on my freaking Note 9 from, when did it come out, 2018, something like that. Smartphones kind of bore me, but my perfect handheld emulation device is partly a smartphone. Let's dig into that. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. GeekTherapyRadio.com to get in touch with me. It doesn't put you on any sort of mailing list. It literally just sends me an email to my email saying so-and-so has contacted you through the website. And then sometimes we talk and respond or whatever. You let me know what your geek thing is. It doesn't put you on any sort of list. It's just how to contact me. GeekTherapyRadio.com. Or you can just email me directly, Johnny@GeekTherapyRadio.com. JOHNNY. Also, I'll plug, before I get into the handheld emulator thing, continue that conversation, I'll plug my other stuff. Geek Therapy Radio, just type it into Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I've been doing more on TikTok recently. YouTube, all that good stuff. I'm posting to one of those outlets kind of constantly throughout the week. I wish I did more YouTube stuff, but I did just release a new YouTube video where I kind of put my new camera through its paces. My Panasonic Lumix S5, and I also flew my first generation DJI Mavic Pro around Matagorda, Texas. We went to a house on the Colorado River there, pretty not right at the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico, but close enough. You know where Matagorda is if you're from this part of the world. Part of Texas. Anyways, so yeah, all the social media and YouTube stuff, just type in Geek Therapy Radio and look for the red, white, and black color scheme, and that's how you've got me. Your podcast apps, all that good stuff. Geek Therapy Radio, look for the red, white, and black color scheme, and you got me. All right, continuing the conversation, my wish list for the perfect handheld emulator. Part of that wish list is that it's just a phone. So now let's picture a Samsung Galaxy. I'm not going to say iPhone because iPhone is too much of a walled garden, and emulation isn't as easy to do on an iPhone as it is on Android. I mean, yes, you can emulate. iPhones are great at emulation, but it's just there's more rigmarole to it versus an Android device. So let's picture an Android device. Let's picture an Android smartphone. Let's picture a Galaxy Note, maybe even something a little smaller. Now, picture that in the style of a PSP or even a Nintendo Switch. So you've got a smartphone now with physical controls, not detachable controls, not separate Bluetooth connected controls, Basically, like I said, picture a PSP or a PS Vita that can make phone calls. Has a serviceable front and rear camera, glorious shoulder buttons and thumbsticks, and all the layout that we're used to with our PlayStations and Xboxes and Nintendos and all that stuff. Just a smartphone that has physical controls, not detachable, not Bluetooth, literally just like a PSP that makes phone calls. Better even yet, a PS Vita that makes phone calls. That's my perfect handheld emulation device. Every time I mention that, like if I go on YouTube and leave comments in a comment section or make a video myself about it, I always have people say, without fail, even though I tell them and I show them, here's my perfect emulation device. It's a smartphone that looks like a PSP. It's basically a PSP with a with SIM card inside of it so that you can make phone calls and has a front and rear video camera. It's a smartphone with physical controls. Every time I mention that, every time I paint that picture, without fail, somebody says, just pair an Xbox controller to it, bro. Like, yes, I know. That's already what I do. What I keep, it sounds like I get so buttered about it. Maybe I kind of am. My everyday carry right now, my EDC, like without a backpack, because my backpack can hold, my laptops, and it can hold like my fight stick and cameras, and not counting that. I'm just talking about what I put into my jeans, basically. In my right pocket, I have my Galaxy Note 9 and my wallet. In my left pocket, I have my my 8-bit Do. It's an 8-bit Do controller, 8-bit Do. I say 8-bit Do because obviously it's a play on words of Nintendo. 8-bit Do controller. I think it's 8-bit Do Pro controller. It's flat, so it doesn't have analog sticks. It has 2 D-pads that can basically be mapped to do analog. And it has the original D-pad as well, so it goes flat in my pocket in the other pocket. So right pocket I have my wallet and smartphone, and in my left pocket I have that flat 8-bit Do controller. And my smartphone has a little kickstand on it, so if I'm in a place and I want to play some games, I just plop the kickstand out, and then in the other pocket I take out the 8-bit Do controller, and I'm off to the races playing Mario Brothers while I'm waiting for a tire change or whatever. That's all well and good, and you say, well, why don't you clip the controller to it? They make these cradles that you can kind of clip your phone into it, like an Xbox clip for an Xbox controller. It has a clip on it that you can put your phone in there. That's more stuff to carry around. I'm not carrying an Xbox controller around my pocket and the clip and the phone. I just want one device that has built-in controls, and they can do it. They've done it. They've made pocketable handheld video game systems. Back in the day, I know what you're all, not all, but some of you were thinking, some of you can remember are thinking, Sony Xperia back in the day was a smartphone that had slide-out Sony PSP controls. That's awesome. I want that again, except I don't want it, I prefer it to not be a slider, even though if it was a slider, beggars can't be choosers. But a big smartphone manufacturer has done that in the past. Sony released the Sony Xperia with slide-out PSP controls. It was all in one. It was perfect. It's ancient technology now. The processor in there is not going to emulate much past, NES. But it's been done. So if Sony released something like that again, if Samsung ever released something like that, I think it's kind of far-fetched. We can dream. With all, the reason why I don't think it's that far-fetched is we have seen the explosion of handheld gaming devices in the last couple years. With the Steam Deck, the AN Neo, GPD has always been releasing handheld things. Every manufacturer on Earth has basically seen how popular the Nintendo Switch is, and probably more importantly, the Switch Lite that doesn't have removable controls. They've seen how popular that is, and they're all trying to cash in on that. The Steam Deck release has been extremely, wildly popular. So every manufacturer and their grandmother is making a handheld gaming device now in the early 2020s. So is it extremely far-fetched to think that maybe Samsung, maybe one of the big players, maybe somebody outside of China would make a true gaming smartphone? No, not like the Asus ROG phone. Stop it. Every time someone suggests there are gaming phones, no, you're rubbing a screen that doesn't count. I want physical controls. Oh, but it has the shoulder sensors. No, those are two things, and they're still sensors. It's still just rubbing on stuff. I want buttons and D-pads and analog sticks that you can click and clack and press. Physical things. Oh, Johnny, well, folding smartphones, they emulate the DS really cool. I saw, oh gosh, what am I blanking out on his name? Lizzie Nober? I forget what his name is. I've talked to him a few times. Like, I've seen on his Twitter, folding phones are great for NDS emulation because obviously it folds like a Nintendo DS, but you're still just touching screens. It's not physical controls. I want a phone with built-in physical controls. I can hear my son downstairs. You might hear him talking here on the podcast in a little bit, as he is prone to do. So while we wait for a major manufacturer like Asus or Samsung or Sony or whatever to make a gaming smartphone, a true gaming smartphone with built-in controls, see what Steam Deck is doing, see what everybody else is doing, and say, well, let's do that just better. We're a big company. We can do it better, quote-unquote, theoretically. While we're waiting for that to happen, as mediocre likely as it is, I wouldn't mind if a Chinese manufacturer like GPD or Retroid or whatever offered handheld emulators with SIM card slots. Let that simmer for a second, because I know what some of you are saying right now. Johnny, those manufacturers like the Odin Lite has a 4G SIM card slot. But here's the rub with that. In the new GPDX, it's called the XP Plus or whatever, it's about to start crowdfunding, has a 4G slot. And the rub is, and I was talking to Taki Udon about this just in the comments in YouTube about that, because he mentioned the Odin Lite has 4G. It's like, yes, it does, but does it have a front and rear facing camera? And even if it doesn't have a front and rear facing camera, can that 4G connect to American 4G or international 4G cell towers? Can you just use an Android to run Android with that 4G SIM card in there, capable SIM card slot, and make phone calls? Can I call my wife with an Odin Lite that has 4G just over a 4G cellular network? Or does it have to be using data? Meaning the only way I can do that is with Zoom or with Skype or something like that, or WhatsApp. That's the rub. Let's talk about that kind of concept more, 4G and data in these handhelds, coming up in the next segment. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. Final segment here on Geek Therapy Radio. You got your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger. GeekTherapyRadio.com for more information and to contact me. And just type in Geek Therapy Radio to all your social networking stuff and YouTube. Just type in Geek Therapy Radio and look for the red, white, and black color scheme, and that's how you know you got me. Man, I'm sunburned today. I went for a bike ride today because, like I said, it was so beautiful. I'm tender. So, in the last segment, we were talking about handheld gaming emulators, and I brought up, kind of my wish list, what I wanted to see out of one of them one day, which is basically to have a PSP or like a PS Vita looking device that makes phone calls. That is a SIM card slot and a front and rear facing camera, serviceable front and rear facing camera, that I can also just pick up and call my wife with. Not using 4G data, so like not using like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or Zoom or anything like that to make calls. Like, I want to connect to a cellular network just like my Galaxy Note 9 does, just like an iPhone does, and make regular phone calls with my emulation device with built-in controls. Again, I can't stress enough. Just picture a Sony PSP that makes phone calls and has a SIM card slot. So I mentioned in the last segment that GPD has their GPD XP. They claim to be the world's first modular emulation machine. I hear Riker. I'm going to go talk to my son just for a minute. Hold on. All right, and through the magic of editing, I'm back. Anyways, handheld emulators, 4G or a 5G SIM slots. There's not any that I know of with the 5G yet, but this GPD XP plus modular whatever thing that's about to be crowdfunded on Indiegogo says that it does have a 4G SIM slot. Not only does it have a 4G SIM slot, this XP, by the way, isn't my perfect emulation device. There's still a detachable something. You can kind of interchange the right side of the control scheme. But it does have this 4G slot, and according to their Indiegogo pre-campaign thing they've got here, it says number 14 of their kind of list of features about this thing: support SIM cards and 4G high-speed internet access, offering great online streaming experience. Well, I would imagine, yeah. I mean, you could go use your 4G data to get on the Google Play Store and download Android games and maybe emulators and things like that, sure. But 4G data and making phone calls aren't not necessarily the same thing. It goes on to say, to allow users to play games anytime, anywhere, XP Plus supports mobile networks and allows users to make and receive phone calls. Let's replay that again. XP Plus supports mobile networks and allows users to make and receive phone calls. Triple SIM and dual standby with 2 nano SIM cards or nano plus SIM plus microSD XC. It supports full 4G bands, so TD-LTE China Mobile, FDD-LTE China Unicom, and China Telecom. Let's kind of stop there and pick that apart. Let's say that this claim is true. Just because a company is saying it, just because GPD is saying this, doesn't necessarily, like, if anybody has dealt with the Chinese emulation scene at all, and kind of Chinese crowdfunded things, they say, sometimes they say whatever they're going to say. Like the Chinese government, the manufacturers, and they're under no obligation at all to be factual in their advertising. And sometimes maybe they even mean well. Maybe these companies mean well. Maybe GPD, which I like GPD, I've got several GPD pockets or GPD products. They make good stuff, but sometimes they kind of over promise, under deliver a lot of times, and they're under no obligation to actually deliver. They can say whatever they want. So when GPD here says, quote, XP Plus supports mobile networks and allow users to make and receive phone calls, and then goes on to mention Chinese mobile networks. Does that mean that even if it can send and receive phone calls, like let's say that is a thing, it can send and receive phone calls, is it compatible with North American, in my case, 4G networks or 5G networks? Can I connect to T-Mobile, which is my provider, and use this GPD XP Plus to call my wife just over the mobile phone network? Or, like I was mentioning before, is what this means, what they mean by all this 4G stuff is that you can use the data. Does it mean I can call my wife technically by using WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or Zoom or anything like that? Or can I just, like any phone, pick it up, dial the number, and I'm connected to my wife over a mobile network as usual? We don't know. And even if it does connect mobile networks, like I said, can it connect to a mobile network outside of China? Can my friend Asaf in Israel use it to connect to call his people, his friends, his family on Israeli networks? Can somebody in Canada use it to call their friends? Can people here in Houston, Martin, I've got a listener here in Houston, can he call up his buddies or his boss using mobile networks using a device like this? We don't know. Or the Odin Light, for that matter. Can that make... I don't know. I do know that this GPD XP does have at least a front-facing camera. So you could make video calls. By all means, if you can connect to a 4G network and use the data, sure, you can make Zoom calls. Sure, you can use WhatsApp and things like that. By the way, WhatsApp is not as popular for my international listeners. Every time I go to Europe, everyone's using WhatsApp, for instance. And in South America, WhatsApp is what a lot of people use. Easy Nober, that's the guy I was thinking of. I think he lives in Canada now. Anyways, WhatsApp is super popular elsewhere in the world. It's not that popular in the United States. I believe WhatsApp is owned by Meta, owned by Zuckerberg, and it's just not. We don't need WhatsApp the way that it has been kind of needed in other countries and other areas of the world. So I'm just saying, for international listeners, WhatsApp isn't really a big thing over here. We still have it. I still have it. But we don't, hardly any Americans at least use it very much. The GPD, this kind of list of support kind of goes on to say, number 15, share with anybody by text and voice. Watch short videos anytime and anywhere. And that's where it showcases its front-facing camera. And it even shows a little graphic of a decline and accept button on the screen in the camera, which it looks like an in-display camera, front-facing camera. So it says, quote, you can still communicate with them by text and voice anytime and anywhere through instant messaging apps, WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook Messenger, WeChat. You can also use other apps such as TikTok, Likee, and Triller. I don't know what those other last two are here in the United States and North America. I don't know what Likee or Triller is. To watch short videos or turn on your camera to record your own short videos and upload them. So does that mean the 4G is just using data? Because they just say you can use apps like WhatsApp, Skype, Facebook Messenger, blah, 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 to communicate and text and do voice and video calls. Is that what they mean by making phone calls? Does it mean that you can just use apps that are using data? You're not using the cellular network? I don't know. So this GPD XP comes close to my dream device. And matter of fact, because the left side of the controls are built in. The right side can be interchangeable, but they use a hard connect at the metal level, so it's not using Bluetooth to connect these accessory controllers to the right. They snap in or whatever, and they're physically linked to the processor itself. They don't use laggy Bluetooth or anything like that. But if this GPD XP can actually just make phone calls like on T-Mobile, then I am all about it. It looks awesome to me. The system on chip, I'm going to leave a link in my podcast description so you can learn more about this. Thank you for listening. You are worthy of love. You're worthy of giving and receiving love, and you're worthy of your own self-respect. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. If you'd like to sponsor Geek Therapy Radio, just go to geektherapyradio.com and let's talk.